Happy Valentine's Day.
Well, happy Valentine's Day to you, Sarah.
We never do a Valentine's episode.
We really don't, but
we don't. I mean, this is not our holiday.
No, we have just celebrated our holiday.
Everybody was so excited. We kept it a really good secret, although I did discover that Jen had told Kate Claiborne without me. So that was sad.
Well, listen, Sarah, sometimes you're asleep when we're awake.
I'm often asleep when you're awake right now.
Yeah. So that's just the way it goes.
I think I've talked about this before, but I think I've said it many times, actually. But like, I'm at the very end of a book, and so I go into what's called vampire hours, where my circadian rhythm takes over, and I have discovered that I'm actually nocturnal. And so I go, the other day, Jen texted me at like 3:30 in the morning, and she was like, I'm insomnia texting. I'm sorry. And I was like, I'm just headed to bed. So this is fine.
Lady Hawk, we've met.
Exactly. Lady Hawk. Oh, Lady Rutger Hauer.
Rutger Hauer.
Listen, everyone, if you haven't watched Lady, I gotta watch that. No, I watched it like 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm
a little afraid to go back and watch.
First of all,
yeah, you know,
if you're out
and it
there,
was good.
Okay,
Okay,
you haven't. It is so romantic.
This is romantic. Yeah,
it is so romantic.
Is so romantic.
You haven't watched Lady Hawk.
It's a great.
You don't know what
premise.
we're talking about. Let me paint a picture for you. It's the 1980s, and there is a medieval romance film. Honestly, listen, fuck everybody who says that you can't make a romance, a really truly romantic romance, because this movie, it'll rip your heart out, but also perfect.
It's so romantic.
Okay. Michelle Pfeiffer is 20 years old. I mean, the most beautiful person who has ever walked
so
the
beautiful.
planet.
Yeah, very beautiful.
And just and Rutger Hauer is a medieval knight who wears all black and rides a totally black horse and is just perfect. And he travels, and so the premise is that these two are star-crossed lovers. They are fated to love through like space and time. And there is a kind of terrible priest who's like there are lots of priests in this book. There are like some monks. Matthew Broderick plays like a monk in training. Like there's so like
well, it's medieval.
But there is like kind of a cardinal or like a head of.
Okay, everybody listen. What Sarah's trying to say is it's the Great Gatsby, only it's medieval, and Matthew Broderick.
I guess that's true.
Because Matthew Broderick is the one like telling their story,
Literally,
essentially. He's like almost like the narrator watching from outside.
The Great
He's
Gatsby,
Nick.
but medieval. But yes. Chaos. No, you're not wrong. And that is the brilliant English
Am I
teacher
wrong,
minding you.
though, Sarah?
You're absolutely right. Okay. I'm going to set the scene for real, though. It's medieval France. There are these two people who are like star-crossed lovers. She's the most beautiful person who's ever like walked the planet. And there is a sort of wicked churchy guy, like a sort of cardinally, like head of a church and bishop. And he wants her for him. He wanted her for himself. And he was so devastated by the fact that she loved this like stunningly handsome, knight in all black on a black horse. And so he cursed them never to be able to be together. And the way that this curse works is from sun up
this is
to
the romantic
sundown.
part. Yeah.
She is a hawk and he is a man. And from sundown to sun up, he is a wolf and she is a woman. And so they're just like they can never, and they can only see each other for the one millisecond when dawn meets dusk. And it's the most incredible moment.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. But he like carries this hawk like over
really good.
land, like through like fields of grain. It's unreal. And then at night, and then yes, you're right. It is like the Great Gatsby because young Matthew Broderick plays like a little monk in training who discovers this thing. And he then like takes it upon himself to help them break the curse, which is happening like 3 days hence or whatever. And so it's this kind of like big adventure where they have to go and they have to kill the baddie. And the question is like, will they ultimately both like survive, and will they ultimately both like be human, because Wolf plus Hawk is not the end game here. Anyway, that is the kind of really shady plot of like a shaky version of the plot of Lady Hawk. It does hold up. I watched it like 4 or 5 years ago.
Ooh, see, I will say, like, there's a lot of movies, just like romance itself, right?
No,
where you're
it
like,
is. It's a straight down the middle romance novel. It's
and yet,
freaking great.
Here we are. So,
oh my God. And Rutger Hauer, who really had a time in the 80s.
Yeah, I did. Okay, so here's the other thing, Sarah. Like, you were going to start, but I was going to start. I think we're talking about the same thing. All right, so another weird thing about us having, like, a Valentine's Day episode is we also have, like, a Valentine's Day project.
It's like we planned it. We didn't. And now here we are.
So if you're on social media, if you are, like, follow us on Instagram, you will see, maybe it's already happened. Who knows? If you're, like, one of these people who listens at the midnight, the minute it drops, maybe not for you.
It probably didn't.
At some point today, we are going to have a really cool Instagram announcement in partnership with AH2 Productions. So that's our official name.
That is the Adriana Herrera, Ali Hazelwood team that put together that amazing Kickstarter earlier in the year or last year.
Yeah.
And has announced that they're doing a historical Trailblazer collection. They're going to announce everything in May.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, like yeah. So essentially what's going to happen is there's some teasers happening today.
There's been a teaser already that maybe some of you have figured out who is going to be in the collection. We can't tell you yet, but some of smart Fated Mates listeners will
know. Yes.
Will be able to suss it out.
It's us going like wink, wink. And then I think in March, you'll kind of get some previews on the Kickstarter page and everything. And then I think that Kickstarter is in May. So obviously, listen, we are two people who are just do what Adriana tells us, but
we're just happy to be along for the ride.
And we're really excited about this because it's really, you know what Adriana says all the time about this project is it's like giving some of romance's most beloved authors their flowers. And we would like to be a part of that on this rose-themed Valentine's Day episode.
Well, so that's that. Everybody go check out the announcement on Instagram and stay tuned for more information in March. And again, in May, we have some special episodes coming. We'll keep you obviously posted here. But it's exciting. It's a year for historical romance, which I like to hear. Welcome, everyone, to Fated Mates. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels and I tell the plots of films badly.
I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and editor. And this week, we are doing something we have not done because we thought of a really good idea for it. So it's a Valentine's Day coming up this weekend. And that's typically, as you know, in romance, it's kind of already starting. It's like 1001 bad romance takes from people who hate romance or think it's garbage or, like whatever. It's just like the worst shit, And so it's everybody else is like, okay, I'm going to write, this romance story. And romance readers are like, I want to die. So maybe that's just me. And I think that with heated rivalry being so hot, I have a feeling that there's going to be a flood of these. Anyway, so yeah, it's always a little grim these times. Be careful what you're reading about romance in these media trenches.
Yep. Agreed. I did see something yesterday, which I sent to Joanna and you and Adriana that said, is heated rivalry... No. Wuthering Heights the Victorian heated rivalry? And I rebuke that just on so many levels. It's like every word in that headline is wrong for me.
Well, they mean Wuthering Heights, the movie, right? And here's the thing, didn't they? And here's how you'll know.
Well, they're talking about Wuthering Heights, the movie, but they were asking about Wuthering Heights, the
book.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the part that's really funny. I didn't realize this till this week. So if you know, there's this movie coming out directed by, what's her name? Emerald Fennell?
Yeah.
Did I make that up? Okay.
Yep, that's right.
And if you see the like, you know, the trailer or whatever, it's like Wuthering Heights in like scare quotes. Apparently, the film studio is insisting that every single time like a reviewer or an outlet discusses it, that they use the quotation marks.
Oh, interesting.
So
the quotation marks are part of the title.
Correct.
Well, she's really
Correct.
It's interesting. I saw an interview with her.
It's like a sexclamation point.
I'm definitely going to see this movie for sure.
I know you are. I'm definitely not.
Well, I know it's fine. And so, and listen, I have a lot of questions about this movie for a lot of reasons. Like anybody who has ever spent any time with Wuthering Heights, the text is probably has similar questions to me about this. But like, listen, the preview is so bananas. I'm definitely going. And also, it appears like Margot Robbie wears like vinyl through parts of this movie. Like, I'm confused.
It's all
listen.
Yes,
I have been influenced by all of the coverage of this movie. Anyway, I did see an interview with Emerald Fennell saying that she uses the quotation marks because what this movie is the experience she felt reading the book when she was young for the first time. And I think there's something, listen, is this bullshit? Maybe. But I do think there's something really interesting about that question. Like, it's what we were just talking about with Lady Hawk. Like, there are certain texts that come to you at certain points in your life, and they come with a level of emotional turmoil and just pure feelings, chaos.
Yes.
And you can't ever get that back. Like, it's just that sort of experience of that one thing that you saw or read or experienced. And I think what she's trying to do is harness, or at least what she's saying is like, she wants this film to be the embodiment of that experience for her. And so she's sort of like, no, it's not a true retelling. It's a sort of
homage to like a feeling.
I guess like vibes, like 15-year-old vibes. And I'm sort of like tempted by that. And I think part of me is tempted by that because I too came to Wuthering Heights when I was very young, and it gave me those kind of like chaotic feelings. And so I don't know. I'm into it. I mean, although I will say there's no question that Jacob Elordi is the wrong cast for Heathcliff by any measure related to the actual text. But my daughter, who is 12, saw a preview for it last night on the Olympics and was like, "Oh my God, Jacob Elordi is in this."
Well, see, there you go. Then I guess what
everyone,
that is
Heathcliff
like,
should be played by a man of color. And that's, I mean, like, without question.
Yeah. And Margot Robbie is too old for that role too, correct? I mean, if you're
She's
like really
too
thinking
old.
about the
She
text,
also,
right?
Kathy isn't blonde. Like, there are all sorts of like things that are, but also like,
yeah, I mean, it's Wuthering Heights quotation marks. Who cares, right?
I think this is like, yeah, it's self-insert.
Well, I hope everyone has a nice time.
Which is not great. I do, but I'm sort of like, how does it end? Like, what's she gonna do?
I think I potentially, if you say you enjoyed it, will come out on.
Well, here's the other thing,
cable or streaming, and at some point I would maybe watch it. But yeah.
And I think like you and I are like while we both really enjoy the genre of beautiful people blowing things up. Yes. I think I have an appreciation for or an acceptance of the weird. That's like goes slightly further than where.
Oh, correct. I would say that's 100% true.
And I'm fascinated by things that are like truly bizarre. So
I'm also just not a big watcher, right? I do really like going to the movies, however, but I think like, it's something I do with my husband, and I think he would be like,
no, we're not doing
first.
This.
Yeah. So, I think that's the other reason. Like, it's just not going to be something I would like roll into a theater to see. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I do not go to the movies. So, in fact, I just saw Sinners like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. And then,
And
wait,
I
this is the best
texted
part.
Jen.
Go ahead, tell them. Tell them your secret shame. It's okay.
Guys, I literally, listen, I knew obviously Michael B. Jordan was in a movie called Sinners. I knew all my friends had seen it and really loved it. And I was like, I'm so happy for everybody. I don't really go to the movies. So it doesn't like, and then now I have this thing that lives in my house and stays up later than it used to. And so like, I have to like, when am I going to watch movies? I also have to stay up later than her. Right.
Yeah.
And I also knew it was a horror movie or like it was presented to me as like, oh, it's a horror movie. And so I was like, well, I'm definitely not going to go and see that. So I sort of like was happy for everybody in my life and happy for Michael B. Jordan. And then I sort of went about my way. But she went to a sleepover the other night and Eric was like, what if we watch this movie Sinners? And I was like, oh yeah, okay, let's do that. It begins and I literally was like, wait, this is historical? And then it continues. And I was like, wait, Michael B. Jordan is twins?
She was like, how dare you did not tell me? And I was like, Sarah, I really was like, I'm going back to the texts. Yeah. I'm going to go back to the original text box.
Jen was like, this is willful ignorance on your part. And then I was like, you guys, wait, but everybody, this is a historical movie featuring two extraordinarily handsome men.
Correct.
One of whom loves to eat. And
correct.
But then there were vampires, and I was like, wait, it's vampires?
This was literally like, now listen, sometimes Sarah, it's true, I'm not the best listener, but I was like, Sarah, in this particular case, you just decided not to listen to any of that information because it was everywhere.
I know it was.
Literally, like the
it
funniest
is
part.
The most nominated film for anything ever in the history of anything.
Correct.
And I'm like, what?
Because I was like, I literally was like, we have discussed this
Everybody,
in group texts.
I
Anyway,
fucking
you had a nice time.
Loved that movie, by the way. A banger.
It's great.
Banger.
It is a great movie.
Here's the other thing. I'm always like a little nervous about movies where like reviewers are like it's transcendent and people are like it's transcendent. And I'm like, listen, I just need like handsome people blowing shit up. And then that's what this was. And then I was upset that I didn't see it in a movie theater.
Yeah, well, in that scene in particular, the
music scene.
Yes.
I could tell sitting on my couch.
Was stunning in a movie theater. Like one of those things where as you're watching it, I just remember thinking, I was able to like actually have the internal monologue that like I never actually believe in, like First President, where I was like, I'm so glad I'm watching this in a theater. Yeah. Like I know right now that I'm seeing something extraordinary.
Yeah, I literally had that moment on my couch where I was like, I wish I had seen this. And I didn't have that theater, moment until that scene.
Right.
And I was like, I wish I had been in a theater for this. But anyway, everybody, if you've been if you've just sort of thought like, well, I don't know what this is, but it seems too fancy for me. It's not, first of all.
Or too scary for you.
It's not scary.
It's great. Yeah.
It's not fancy. I mean, it's beautiful. And I can see why people love it. But like, it's not like, it's not going to go over your head.
No, it is a great story. Yeah. Anyway, it's awesome. So
fun.
See, I'm glad we recovered. Sometimes I feel like, we start with talking about the 80s, but here we are talking about 2025.
Yeah, no, listen,
we can do both.
Listen, you should do a double header, Sinners and Lady Hawk.
Bam. Two historical bangers.
Listen, rent out a movie theater. I discovered this not long ago. It's actually not very expensive to rent out a movie theater. And I have thought, like, it's
be
like,
fun.
It's like $500, right? Like it's so in the grand scheme of things, it's not that expensive considering how expensive a movie ticket is.
Right.
And so like, I think we should all do more like rent out a movie theater, invite all your friends in town to like come watch.
And just watch Sinners. Yeah.
And
Michael B. Jordan and Michael A. Jordan. Can you imagine? Fated Mates movie theater takeover? It would be so fucking chaotic.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Tarina Deaton, author of Day in the Night.
Okay, so our heroine is Abby Day. She is like, listen, she's got a simple life and it's fine. She has her work, her son, her friends. She goes to the aquarium on weekends and renames the fish. Everything's boring and that's how she likes it. Until her, let's be honest, soon to be ex-best friend after this shenanigans, pretends to be her and agrees to a date with a tattooed, bearded biker with a mischievous smile. So what happens is that is Tinker Knight. He has 3 simple rules: protect the defenseless, don't take life too seriously, and keep relationships short, simple, and unattached. But on this date, apparently Abby gets a little drunk, lectures him about the origins of his motorcycle club mascot, and basically he's kind of like, okay, I like her, but I'm serious, Tinker Knight, I can't. So he goes, sir. Okay, but then Abby is in danger. And so she needs help. So who can she reach out to? Probably that like bad boy motorcycle guy that she went out on the date with. So she reaches out and Tinker is like, okay, I love helping people. And she's also real sweet and sexy. So that all of a sudden he's got like a girlfriend. I love it. So Tinker Knight really did not think that this would happen to him, but here's Abby making him want to break all of his rules.
Well, if you love the idea of a military romance with single parenting and found family, then Day in the Night just might be for you. You can read it right now in print, ebook, and audiobook. And as a special treat for Fated Mates listeners, Tarina Deaton has offered a sneak peek of the audiobook, which will play after this week's episode. Thanks to Tarina Deaton for sponsoring this week's episode.
All right, so we have done Halloween episodes pretty regularly. And we have done really funny ones where we're like, okay, we're just going to do characters named Devil and we're just going to do demons, right? And so inspired by this idea, I was like, Sarah, we should do a Valentine's Day episode where we talk about 12 things where roses or a character named Rose or an author named Rose play some sort of part. And we're going to call this episode A Dozen Roses.
Which I love. What a clever little idea she came up with, everyone.
8 fucking years in, everybody. Sometimes I still got it.
Perfect. So this morning, Eric was like, do I have an episode to edit this weekend? And I was like, it's coming today. And he said, what is it? And I said, roses. And he looked at me like, what? And then I was like, don't worry about it.
Just don't worry about it. It's going to be great.
Don't worry your pretty little head about it.
So, yeah, it's a little hot up there. Just like cool down. So what we're going to do is we each are going to do 6 like items.
We are.
And I'm going to try and really keep us to 12 because I really want
it's got to be a dozen.
Yes, it's got to be a dozen. Not a baker's dozen, a dozen.
And we are not, just to confirm, are we limited to romance novels or can we discuss outside? Well, or should we just like talk about roses in theme right now?
I think it's like our purpose here is it's like a rose that is going to delight you.
A rose that will delight you. I love
that could include many things.
Rose from Titanic. Well, although, is she going to delight you? I don't know.
Well, all the way.
Well, so
she does live.
When we were discussing this, we were discussing, okay, what are the parameters? There are no parameters. Rose could mean anything. Yes. So it's characters, text, roses in text.
Yes. Authors' names.
Authors' names. Town names.
Yeah, whatever you want. Yes. We are like, that's it. Broadly,
and then Jen made a list, like threw out an immediate list, and then I was like, okay, yes, let me just like verbally vomit.
Sometimes Sarah, when Sarah's in vampire mode, it's just like I can't possibly do that, and I was like, Sarah, this is the easiest.
Yeah, she is very good at being like, shut up, I know your brain.
I know your brain. I know our brains. Eric could have been like with no prep. Actually, we often really don't prep everybody, but it was like we could do this. This is low hanging romance fruit. I think.
Correct. And so
softly blooming romance roses.
And I said Rose from the Titanic, and Jen wrote, of course, all caps. But that obviously everyone knows. Spoiler: the boat sinks at the end, so it's not a romance novel.
Yes,
it is just like a romantic piece of romantic fiction. I also said Rose from the Golden Girls. she's not genuinely romantic, but she is a delight, played by
She
the
is a delight.
goddamn American treasure, Betty White.
Betty White. I mean, what was I seeing the other day? Like, Rose is from Minnesota.
Oh, she
That Rose.
is.
And someone had like found a clip where she like was giving this like really like heartfelt defense of like the heart of gold people of Minnesota. And I just thought, you know what? Right the fuck on. I mean, I think that's the other thing. It's like, so anyway, yes, Rose from the Golden Girls also counts now. Sarah, that's 2 already.
No,
are we like
those
diving
don't
in?
count
like
as my 2.
See how it's
I'm
going
just saying,
already?
this is when I like to do. In the early days of the interstitials, I like to be like, well, I was going to talk about this book because we were really hardcore in the early days of the interstitials. It was 3 books and that was it. No others. I don't know what we were doing. I don't know why we were so picky.
We were pretending.
So I would be like, well, I was going to talk about this, but then I decided no. And then I was going to talk about this. And I would sneak in 6 or 7 books. So that's me sneaking in some like non-romance
Sneaking in some roses. Okay. Fair.
So I feel that's, fine.
Sure.
Okay. You start.
Okay, so I'm actually going to start with, low-hanging romance fruit, heated rivalry. And here's why.
I mean, this little-known text.
This little-known property that no one's ever heard of before. And it actually is really funny because I was like, okay, like Rose Landry, right? So if you know the show or the book, there's a point where Shane essentially is kind of like fake date. And he's trying to date a woman, right? Like he does, I think, genuinely like her. And, obviously he is like so in the closet and really afraid of like what that means for himself. So he dates this movie star named Rose Landry. And it's funny, I liked her a little bit better, actually, in the show. I think she's a lot more kind of sympathetic. In the book, she comes off as sort of just like, I don't know, like, I don't think she's as well developed, or we don't like get a sense of like why she is, like, kind of the way in which she like sort of talks to Shane about like, essentially, I suspect you're gay. I think in the show felt very like tender to me. But then I think the other part that was really funny is this week at work, we're having this like secret snowflake thing where you have like a little friend you're giving like little gifts to and you don't know who it is. And all of us were like, oh, we hate things like this, but we really like our new boss and we want to support her. So we all decided to participate. And you just like, I got like candy this week, but somebody who gave it to me put a little Valentine on it and it said a dozen rosies. And it was like little pictures of Ilya Rozanov.
Aww.
And I was like, that's right. It's Rose Landry and Ilya Rozanov. And so I was like, oh yeah, that is perfect. Listen, it's perfect. So for your Valentine's Day, if you have not yet watched Heated Rivalry or read the Game Changers book, you will have a very nice time, whether or not you are like a, Ilya Rozanov fan or not. We all are. So anyway, I thought that was really cute. It was adorable. I should take a picture of it. Maybe I'll make that like something I put in show notes. It was cute.
I love it. A strong beginning.
Yes. There you go.
Okay. So I want to talk about Lorraine Heath because we love Lorraine Heath here at Fated Mates. She has a series called the Rogues and Roses series featuring sisters Jenny and Kate Rose. And I want to talk about Kate's book, which is called Just Wicked Enough. These are Americans who are turned up in London there was a sort of a time when American heiresses or American families would bring their like wealthy daughters to England to basically buy a title because the aristocracy was falling into just impoverished states. They had all these estates that were falling apart and they needed cash money in order to keep their titles in the manner in which they are accustomed. And wouldn't you know it, all these rude, brash Americans had plenty of money. And so they came over to buy titles. The book Just Wicked Enough is my favorite of these two. The first book is A Duke of Her Own. And that's a chaperone. Actually, the heroine of that book is Jenny's chaperone. And so there's, a duke who needs to marry for wealth, and he's trying to like win over one of these American heiresses. And in fact, he falls for her British chaperone who has no money. I love that.
Sure.
So that's a Duke of her own. But Just Wicked Enough is so sexy. Michael Tremaine, Marquis of Falconridge, is very poor. And he needs money. And he is willing to trade basically everything that he has to his name for money. And there is Kate Rose, just sort of kind of an American heiress who has absolutely no interest in marrying for money because she wants to marry for love. They are kind of forced into a marriage where she makes a deal with him where basically she's like, so now we're married, but too bad for you because we're not going to do it ever unless we are in love. And he's like, love and sex are the same, woman. And then this one is for people who really love St. Vincent. Like, it's a very similar kind of vibe from this guy who's like, I don't understand. Like, why are you so simple-minded that you can't see that if I bring you to orgasm, that's basically the same?
That's the same. That's love.
So he's like, I'm going to seduce you. And Kate is like, I'm going to make you fall in love with me. And that is Just Wicked Enough by Lorraine Heath, featuring Kate Rose, the Rogues and Roses series.
I mean, I love it. Okay. All right. I'm going to talk about a book next where something rose scented plays a part. Okay. So the book is, I love this fucking series, everybody. Again, Minnesota. Nice. Nero by S.J. Tilley, who is a Minnesota author, is the first book in the Align series. I put Hans, which is the last book in the Align series, on my like best of list a couple years ago. And I really love this series. And things have just been kind of hard, right? And so sometimes when things are like that, I find myself really drawn into like a comfort reread. And so then you're like, really, there's like details that you would not, like, I wouldn't have necessarily remembered this detail if it wasn't for the fact that I was like, had reread it pretty recently. Cause I was just like, these books are a nice time. This is how I want to feel. So, in this book, Peyton is our heroine, and she is actually like a very sad, lonely young woman. She grew up in an abusive household. She had a stepfather who was like verbally abusive, and then essentially she figured out that he was like up to something really bad, and she like ran away from home like a couple of days for her 18th birthday. And this though has like really impacted her ability to like live a full life. So she lives in the Twin Cities. She has a job at a coffee shop. She is just, but just like really isolated. So anyway, she's like watching The Wizard of Oz one night in her like apartment, and she has like a balcony. She's on the second floor with like a sliding glass door that's open. And all of a sudden, a man appears in her home. He has climbed up, essentially like scaled the balcony and has like jumped in. And then she hears sirens go by, and she realizes that like the cops must be after this guy.
Terrific.
Now, he's also devastatingly handsome and in a suit. So how dangerous could he be?
And like relaxed.
Dangerous. Sure, just chill. He just like comes in.
Where are we watching?
Yeah, where are we watching? And she is. And the thing that I thought was like so great at this moment is she's so like terrified that she like freezes, right? Like it's like her fight or flight reflex is frozen. Like she doesn't have that. And so anyway, and she like and he's like, I'm not going to hurt you, but I kind of need to hang out here for a little bit. And so, she has like no defenses. It's like if a hedgehog was a person. Right? So anyway, she falls asleep. And at this point, Nero is like, this woman has no defenses. I would like to defend her. So anyway, he like pokes around her fucking house, and he finds her mail and figures out what her name is and where she works.
And what does he do, Jen?
He goes into her bathroom and he smells her body wash, which is like, honestly, you guys, wrong, but real sexy.
No, totally right.
And it is rose scented. You see where I'm going with this, but not like a flowery rose, like this, like dark, like right rose scent. And so he steals this bottle of fucking body wash, which she doesn't even. She wakes up the next morning,
which is expensive, by the way.
Yeah, it's super expensive.
And she doesn't have any money.
She has no money, but he has left a $100 bill in the bathtub, like where the body wash was. So she knows that he has taken it. And even though she has no defenses or anything, she's like, I think he likes me. 'Cause why else would he take the body wash, right? And in fact, he does like her. And you know what? I love this fucking book. And I love this fucking
It's really
series.
fun. It's really fun.
It's a great opening. And then, like, basically he's like watching her and she doesn't really know that, but she is like, I'm going to leave, like, basically one night. She's like, I'm going to leave this sliding glass door open again because I want him to come back. And he realizes that that's a symbol for that, you know, and he climbs up there again. And then all of a sudden they're in love. So that's
Perfect.
Nero by S.J. Tilley. This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Lux, publishers of Eleanor and Gray by Brittany Cherry.
Eleanor has loved Grayson East for as long as she can remember. As a teenager, he was her everything. He was her first crush. He was her closest friend. He was the boy who honestly made her feel like this is forever. But life had other plans and they parted ways, and when tragedy struck when they were young. And now, years later, Eleanor takes a nannying job, hoping to rebuild her own life, and discovers that her new boss is Grayson. The boy she once knew now turned into a very cold man haunted by loss. Grayson's hired Eleanor to nanny for his two daughters after the death of his wife, and he is really interested in having her sort of keep a distance and focus on her job. But Eleanor starts to spend time with these girls and with Grayson and discovers that this cold exterior is just a wall that he's built around himself. And underneath, he's still that lovely, charming, fun boy that she knew all those years ago. So with each passing day, Eleanor starts to chip at those walls and uncover the pain that he is trying to bury. And the big question is whether or not she'll be able to convince him that loving again is as wonderful as we all know it can be.
So if you would like to check out Eleanor and Gray, it is available now in print, audio, and ebook. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Lux and Brittany Cherry for sponsoring this week's episode.
So you said S.J. Tilley, and S.J. Tilley also has a book, which I have not read, called Dear Rosie, which is the first thing I'm going to read when I'm done with my book, because it's epistolary, and the main character, it's childhood friends to lovers, to adult lovers, with a long, long separation in between. And I think he doesn't recognize her when they first re-meet, which is, I'm super into all of that. But the reason why I mention it is because Rosie is in the title. And then I wanted to talk about Rosie Danon.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
See where I'm going with this? Some gymnastics. I want to talk about Rosie's debut, The Roommate, which I think is so fun. And Rosie, I mean, listen, it feels like every time Rosie puts a book out now, people do backflips and cartwheels because she's really fun.
She's so
her books
good.
are so funny. Her books are so sexy. Oh, she writes great sex scenes. But this one really will always be a favorite for me because it's everybody knows I love a first book. I think first books tell a really remarkable story about novelists. So this is Clara, who is kind of a woman from a wealthy family that's in the news a lot, moves cross country for the summer to move in with her boyfriend, who is a musician. And when she gets to LA, she discovers that her boyfriend is like, oh, adorable that you came here to live with me, but I'm actually going on tour with my band. So, but no problem. Why don't you just go live you could just go live in my apartment and there's a roommate there, but don't worry. So
She'll be fine.
She gets there and this roommate is Josh, and Josh is a porn star. And she's like, oh my gosh, I don't know that I feel comfortable with this, but Josh feels real comfortable with it. And so what ends up happening is Clara kind of opens up her like whole world begins to open up with this real awareness of like Josh as like a sex worker, and also just like somebody who's super comfortable with like
Oh yeah, it's great.
everything there is to experience related to sex. And so they actually make a deal where they like they're going to work they're going to work together, and like they come up with this kind of project where called Shameless, where they merge
Yeah.
sex ed and entertainment, and they end up being like perfect matches, perfect, so much chemistry, just
Yeah.
like off the charts chemistry. And then, it's just a really fun, really
Yeah.
sexy, kind of perfect roommates to lovers book.
Yeah, it's great.
And also
Yeah.
like deeply sex positive, like one of the best executions of sex work in romance, I think, still, even now.
Mhm.
And now we're starting
Yeah.
to see more sex work in romance. But my rose for this one is Rosie Danan.
Nice. Good job. Okay. All right. I have one. Now, okay, everybody, I will admit, I have not read this one in a while, but it did like sometimes I like to talk about my process. So I like went to my, my Kindle, content page or whatever, and just put in like Rose, like, right, like what's in there. And that's how I did find some of these, but I forgot about this book, which I really like. Let me see when it was published. Hold on. I think it's from maybe like maybe it's more recent. I thought maybe it was republished. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. It's called Compass Rose by Anna Burke. And this is a sci-fi pirates, sci-fi lesbian pirates. I don't know what else you need to know about this. So
Done.
Rose, the reason it's called Compass Rose is our main character's name is Rose. And she has like it's not really paranormally, I would not say. I mean, there's like sea monsters and stuff, but like she is, but you know what I mean.
I get it.
But she has like a special talent, which is she was born with the innate ability to tell which direction she is pointing. And that's why her mom named her Rose, because she's essentially like a human compass rose.
How funny.
Isn't that awesome?
What a weird special talent.
Well, but if it's like a water world where
Yeah, no,
everybody's
yeah, you
out
need that.
pirating around,
Very
then
skilled.
this would be a very nice thing to have on your boat. And what happens is she falls and she's like, so it's like from and again, I haven't read this in a while. What I remember is she falls in love with, now I want to look up, I'm like really confused sometimes about like the dates of things. I'm like, was I wrong that I read this a long time ago? Was it republished or rejacketed? I don't know. Yeah, I think so. I think it was just like republished, or maybe she got the rights back. Okay. So anyway, so she's like, Rose is like an undesirable essentially of some kind, right? Like there's this like striation. And so she's almost like she gets on these boats, but like she's like of the lesser class or whatever. But in this case, she ends up on essentially she's like on a secret mission. And on her boat is like the name of this boat is the Man o' War. And the captain's name is Miranda.
Mm-hmm.
And, Captain Miranda is like, on the blurb here, bloodthirsty and alluring, which is true. But also there's kind of like a little hint of like a threesome developing, because Captain Miranda also has like a first mate, and her name is Orca, which is like actually pretty great if you're a first mate to have like a name after a big whale. So anyway, she falls in love with Miranda, but then they have this big breakup, and then I think she gets like, she's kissing Orca, and Miranda like sees them. And anyway, it's just like I would almost say, by the way, though, like this to me, if I'm also remembering correctly, it was more like a romantic adventure than it was like a true romance. And by that, I just mean like, I think it's like closed door. There's like just like kissing, but it's like really like about Rose herself being sort of like trapped into this like really kind of strange situation, and then it's just like a big rip-roaring adventure. So this is like, and it's set, even though it's, and I think one of the things that's fun is it's like set in the future 2513, but it's like all like pirates on the high seas because of like climate change or whatever. It's like water world. So anyway, that's Compass Rose by Anna Burke.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's
I'm
really
writing
fun.
that down. Okay, where are we at? We've done 2 each. No, 3. That's your third.
That's my third. Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about Her Perfect Affair by Priscilla Oliveras. The main character of this book, Rosa,
Perfect.
is a wait, let me take it back. Her name is Rosa, and that's what you need to know. But this is the second in Priscilla's Matched Perfection series. These are category romance length, and they are this heroine, Rosa, is she is setting herself up, or she has an opportunity to be a teacher in a Catholic school that has been a part of her life since she was very young. So she, this is all teed up. She's having a great day. She's having a great time of it. And her sister, who is the heroine from the previous book, is getting married. And so she goes to this wedding. And at this wedding, she's like dancing on air. Everything is coming up roses for Rosa.
Perfect.
And including the fact that this dreamy guy, Jeremy, who she has been into forever, is also there, and she deserves some fun, Jen. So
I agree.
And Jeremy have a one-night stand at the beginning of this book, and then he's like kind of off to his like rich dude's life the next day, and all is fine. And Rosa's basically like, I guess that was just like my one night with Jeremy. Like, I've had a lifelong crush, but like that's never going to happen because we are different people. I'm like a school teacher here, and he is like off being a jet setter. Problem is, one night stands often result in romance in a terrible, wonderful consequence, which is a baby. And Priscilla sort of teased this all up in a really interesting way because, like, obviously Rosa is very Catholic, and also she's like this sort of dream job hinges on her. Like, so if she is essentially, if she just has this baby by herself, like this kind of like the school itself, she feels she will be judged within the context of the school. Jeremy comes back. She does not dance. This is not a secret baby relationship book. She does not dance around it. She tells him exactly what the situation is. He's like, no problem. Let's get married. She's like, hang on a second. Yes, problem. We're not getting married. But what's really cool about this book is Priscilla writes a beautiful big family book. All of her series have these like big family stories. Her sisters are basically like, when is the wedding? She's like, no wedding. He's like, yes, wedding. And so what ends up happening is these two kind of like have to figure out how they are going to make this work, because we know as readers, not just because it's a romance novel, but also because Priscilla tells us that like ultimately these two are going to make it work. It's just a matter of figuring out how he is going to convince her that like he is not this like jet-setting playboy that she thinks he is. He's ready to settle down. He's ready to be a husband, a father. He's ready to commit, all of these things. So it's really romantic. If you've read Priscilla before, you know that she writes less steamy books. But I think she does it so beautifully because she really leans into the like breathless romance in these books. I love this. Also, for those of you who are interested, this book has a really excellent rep for hyperemesis gravidarum, which is the condition where you have like terrible morning sickness, like forever. Rosa actually has that in this book. So there's a kind of like real authenticity to this whole book, and I have love. It is one of my very favorite kind of oops, there's a baby, we have to get married books. So that is Her Perfect Affair by Priscilla Oliveras.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Blue Box Press, publishers of the Primal of Blood and Bone special edition paperback.
So Anybody who loves Jennifer L. Armentrout knows that this is her, Hallmark series. This is the 6th in the series, The Primal of Blood and Bone. And here we have like Poppy, who has finally awakened to discover the kind of deep, devastating consequences that have been happening over the course of the series. The blood crown has fallen, and a great danger has risen. I mean, this is a long-standing romantasy series that readers love every single word of. And Blue Box is producing a special limited edition paperback right now, which is designed to the hilt, full of sprayed edges and gloss and embossed cover elements. It has original artwork in it, and this is for everybody who loves these books, who is excited about collecting, all of the different variations of Jennifer's books, and is interested in really in snatching up a paperback that will not be around for very long. This one is for fantasy readers, for anybody who loves forbidden romance, for anybody who loves enemies to lovers. Jennifer L. Armentrout knows the job, and that is The Primal of Blood and Bone.
So if you are interested, you can check this out by essentially wherever books are sold. You'll be able to find this Primal of Blood and Bone special edition paperback. If you click on the chapter title right now, you can be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Blue Box Press and Jennifer L. Armentrout for sponsoring this week's episode. Okay, so I am going to now talk about a series by Renee Rose. And if you'll remember, many years ago, we did sort of maybe it was that first dark romance kind of, and we'd asked the authors, and this listen, dark romance is very different now. So I would actually not call this a dark romance series, but it's the Vegas Underground series by Renee Rose. Joanna Shoup, it recommended it to us either on that episode or on a Mafia episode. I can't remember. In what Joanna described was the first book of the series, which was called King of Diamonds. And in this series, basically, there's a woman who is she's left Reno for Vegas. She is trying to find a job being a dealer in a casino because that's the job that her cousin has. But she can't get a job like that instead. So her name's Chandra, I think. And so she has to, instead, she's working as a maid. And through a series of sort of convoluted events, she ends up Sandra ends up in the, cleaning the suite of the casino's owner, Nico Taccone. I don't know how you'd say that. How would you say that if I was Tacone?
Taccone?
That's Taccone.
That's right.
I was like,
you were right.
I'm not Italian. I just play one on TV.
You're just an ally?
I'm just an ally. And she's not supposed to be there. He has these really strict rules about who is allowed to be in his suite, and she is not one of them. So he pulls a gun on her, and she is really fucking scared. She actually pees. She's so scared. And I was and Joanna read this to me, and I was like, that sounds crazy, and I would like to read it. That's my crazy. Because I was like, yeah, these men would scare you. She's the maid, and he has a gun to her head, and then he realizes
is he
shit.
yikes?
Yes. He's like, let's get you in the shower. Oh, you're hot. Now, am I ashamed a little bit of how much I enjoyed this book and then read the entire series afterwards? No, because I don't care. So it is a whole series then, and eventually we meet this man's brothers and cousins, and her cousin gets a book, and it's maybe 6 or 8 books, and I, after that episode, just read right fucking through them. Now, like I said, regardless of what it says, a dark romance series, I would not call this dark romance at all. To me, it's a mafia series. It's clear that he's a bad guy, but you don't really see a lot of that on page. And the whole series takes place in and around this Vegas casino owned by this family. So anyway, it was great. So it's the Vegas Underground series by Renee Rose.
Cool. Let's talk about Tessa Bailey's Love Her or Lose Her.
Oh, I love that book.
Heroine Rosie. Um, okay, where are we at? This is a Marriage in Trouble book by
Yeah.
Tessa, and actually, really a lovely. I actually really love this book.
I love this book too.
You know, Tessa often writes younger heroines, and so this is really I can't think of another Marriage in Trouble book that she's done. And this is Rosie and Dominic, who are high school sweethearts, and they have been together forever. They have absolutely no problem in the sex department. They are hot for each other and continue to be hot for each other, have always been. But Dominic kind of like, he's just a stern, serious guy. He is an ex-soldier. He's been deployed. He comes home, and we meet them kind of after they have been married for years, and they are literally talking about, or they are both considering divorce on the page. And I think this is a really like kind of bold. We did an episode on divorce, and actually I don't think we talked about this book.
I think he's really worried she's gonna.
She is thinking about divorce.
She's the one.
Yeah. And he kind of, this is a great example of a book where like communication, I think one of the reasons why it works so well as a romance novel, and why I think about it a lot as a kind of hallmark romance novel, is it underscores the way romance prioritizes communication between characters. And it is really about, these two are wild about each other, but they cannot work through the fact that like their communication is fucked
to shit. Yeah.
And it is, I mean, it has all of the things that Tessa is known for. She is the queen of dirty talk. Dominic is an excellent dirty talker. It's really, really full of, fun banter. She's so funny. It just showcases all the things that we love the most about Tessa Bailey. And also, it's so romantic.
Yeah.
Like, because you really do see these two people who want desperately to find each other again. They don't want to end what they have.
Yeah, but they can't figure it out.
And they just have to do the work. And then she shows us them doing the work. And it's great. If you're interested in a kind of Marriage in Trouble, I mean, I think this should be on Marriage in Trouble lists. It's great.
I was just say, so one more thing is like, it's also really funny. Like they go to this like really like groovy therapist.
Yes.
And there's like a lot of comic relief in that. And I think it's like an example of like how, it's like sometimes you think I'm like going to go into this like really like deep, like depressing or sad book or whatever because it's Marriage in Trouble. And then, I think Tessa, this is like a really good example of how like a rom-com setup can like really like lower the angst meter by like giving you that, like those breaks for like it being really funny.
Yeah.
Like them going to this like hippie therapist and Dominic being
Dominic's like,
are you actually fucking kidding me right now? Yeah.
Right. There's like a whole bit where like they have to do nature. And he's like, fuck no.
Yes.
Also, classic Tessa Bailey structure here. There are very, very good friends who are the other characters, I think, in the series, or but Rosie has these great girlfriends, and yeah, this is a really, really fun book. So that is Tessa Bailey's Love Her or Lose Her.
So I am going to talk about The Taming of Jessie Rose.
Oh boy, Beverly Jenkins.
By Beverly Jenkins. Now, everybody, here's how you know an author is fucking great. Is you're like, yeah, that's my favorite book. And then you read another one by her and you're like, nope, this one's my favorite. And that is like my experience like every time. But like, I think this one maybe is going to be one of my real favorites. Okay, so because it has a lot of the things that I really like, the kinds of like situations and setup I really love, right? So one of my favorites, everybody knows, is like heroine against the wall. And Jessie Rose is a heroine against the wall. So the book opens with she and her father are like running like a cattle ranch in Texas. And like literally the book opens with her father being like stampede, like there's a stampede, and that is so dangerous, so they are gonna have to like get out, jump on their horses with their hands, and like try and get like the stampede to like, you know, like not hurt anybody or anything, and like tear down their house or whatever. And in the midst of this stampede, her father is shot and killed, because apparently one of the ways you're going to like shoot your gun to like kind of scare the herd into like going in a certain direction. They're like literally like herding the stampede on horses. Everything I know really about cowboys I learned from Miss Buff's books. It's fine.
Romance cowboy.
You know what? Romance cowboy.
Except it's Bev, so
it's like literally
it's probably
true,
actual cowboy.
I was like, I think that's how it works because it's Bev. All right. So anyway, and her father is killed by this, like, you know, but when she gets to her father, he says to her, you know, they shot me on purpose. It was one of Darcy's men. And so what we find out is then the rest of the book opens up. That's the prologue. Like a year later, Jessie Rose and her young nephew, he's like 10 or so, are holding down the fort on the ranch while essentially the railroad is supposed to be coming through. But everybody in town has to sell their land in order to get the railroad to like go their way. And Jessie's like, I don't want to sell. This is my family's land. I'm not selling. And this has made her a pariah with this like really powerful family. So this is sort of like, this is kind of what's happening on her side. Now, Griff is the hero, and we met him in the prologue as well, I guess, where his mother died and like kind of left him alone because right after the Civil War, the railroad had essentially like deprived them of his mother's ability to make a living. So he's out on his own at like 10. Now it's like, you know, the book picks up. He's 25. Jessie's like in her early 30s, but he has hated the railroad his entire life because of the way it ruined his mother's life. So he is in jail for essentially like robbing the railroad. He's like, I'm just going to make it my life's business to fuck with the railroad. You know what? I like this about a man. So he's in jail, and along comes like an old colleague and friend who's like the hero of Topaz, who's like, I'm going to get you out of there because I got this letter from this young boy and he needs help. And it's like Jessie Rose's nephew. And in order for you to get out of here, though, Griff, I'm going to have to turn you into a marshal. And of course, he's like, you can't do that to me. I'm on the wrong side of the law. You want me on the right side of the law? You're going to ruin my whole vibes. But he kind of agrees because what else are you going to do? Stay in jail. So Griff goes down to Jessie Rose's ranch. And like one of the things I really love too in these like old Westerns, there's like a very particular kind of like setup where it's like, we are going to have to hold down the fort, like hold down, right? It's the three of us. It's you and me and this 10-year-old, and we are going to have to defend the whole ranch from like the oncoming onslaught of bad guys. So he calls in Preacher, my favorite, and he calls in Neil, right? Like, so like basically
the Jenkins like kind of universe.
Yes, the Avengers Assemble vibe of it all. But also like Jessie Rose is just like a really interesting character, right? Like she has been married. She kind of like realized she needed to get married to be a teacher and was not like unhappily married. It was fine. But then he died. Her kind of goes back home to be with her father. She's essentially her nephew's mother because her sister died in childbirth. So this is like the only woman he's ever known. And it's just a rip-roaring Beverly Jenkins adventure, as they all, right? As one does. But Jessie Rose and Griff are also just like really hot for each other. Like at one point, they're just kissing. Right? Where he's just like, let's kiss for a while. And I was like, yes, let's. One other thing I wanted to say, there's one other thing that was like really interesting to me is, you know, sometimes I think one of the bad raps historical gets is like, you know, this is all old timey stuff. Like, what is this relevant? What does it have to do with today? Jessie Rose is barren because she had measles as a child. And I had forgotten this.
I don't remember that.
Right? Because it's such a little thing.
Yeah.
But, right now in our country, we're having a measles spreading like wildfire because it's really fucking dangerous. And I just found myself thinking here is get fucking vaccinated. I don't know, but I did. So I found myself really thinking here is a historical where this woman's life has really been impacted by the fact that she had measles as a child. And then we have people out here fucking around with measles.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's great. It's a really, really fun book. If you have not read this one, it was terrific. I loved it. The Taming of Jessie Rose.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by HarperCollins, publishers of A.T. Qureshi's The Baby Dragon Bookshop. Cute.
Yeah, so this is the third book in the Baby Dragon series. It just came out this week, so you're just right on the edge and it's perfect download for this week. So Emmy has an enemy, and his name is Luke. The good news, she rarely sees him. The bad news, when she does, she and her baby dragons are reminded just how handsome he is. However, she's not going to let that distract her. She has a plan to get her dragon-fueled business, right, sort of up, and that's going to mean approaching a local investor for funding. Unfortunately, Luke has approached the same investor, and this person's a bit of a kook, and they comes up with this plan, which is basically that the two of them are going to have to compete for the cash by working at the local baby dragon bookshop, which is failing and not doing well, in order to prove their magical business knowledge. So Emmy is determined to win the funding and dives in, even though she's a little worried that having baby dragons around so much flammable material does not seem like it'll be a good idea. But these rivals, it turns out, are going to have to join forces. So Luke and Emmy's fiery animosity might spark something more between them, but hopefully not spark a fire at the bookstore for the baby dragons. I'm just saying, it just sounds adorable and cute.
It really, really does. And if you love the idea of a small town, enemies to lovers, forced proximity, cozy fantasy, then this book might just be the one for you. You can read the Baby Dragon Bookshop and the other books in the Baby Dragon series right now in print, ebook, and audiobook. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy this adorable romance. Thanks to HarperCollins and A.T. Qureshi for sponsoring this week's episode. We never talk about, we rarely talk about romantic suspense. And I think it's worth us using a little portion of today's episode to discuss Karen Rose.
Ooh, yeah.
Has been around for a long time and consistently writes terrific thrillers that have strong romances in them. And I don't even think she has a new book that came out or that is coming out this summer, The One Who Walked Away, and it is a straight down the middle romantic suspense. And I think it's interesting because I've been thinking a lot about this because, as we all know, a lot of people say historical's dead, historical's dying. And I think people have said that about his romantic suspense for a long time. Oh, you can't sell romantic suspense. Nobody wants to read it. No, it doesn't exist. And there was a time when romantic suspense was the biggest thing, right? Everybody was writing romantic suspense. And what I would say is if you love romantic suspense, Karen Rose, who you're probably already reading, Karen, but if you're curious about romantic suspense, Karen Rose is the person for you to try. And I'm saying all of this sort of thinking is there a particular book that I would recommend? And it's tricky because I did not go back. I wrote Karen's name on a piece of paper and I didn't go back to look at the books that usually with somebody like Karen who's been writing for a long time. I've read the early books, but I feel one of the challenges with romantic suspense is invariably it's contemporary, and I wouldn't necessarily, I would like to reread it before I made sort of a recommendation. But I did read Buried Too Deep, which is, she has a whole series that's set in New Orleans. And it came out last year, maybe, or it's recent. It's very recent. And it is a private investigator and a librarian, and the librarian's father's body has been discovered under a newly demolished building. And he was murdered years and years, like decades ago. But she has been receiving letters from him every year since she was 5. And so now, like, she's in danger. Phineas, the hero, has been hired as her bodyguard and also a private investigator. So it's like a little bit of a bodyguard book. It's a little bit of a private investigator. It's like a who's been in this woman's life for all these years. And it's all set against this kind of very lush New Orleans-y backdrop. Karen Rose knows how to write a mystery. She understands how to keep the like romance in the story instead of it, these two are together the whole book. You're really doing the work. And I think if you are curious about romantic suspense or you love romantic suspense and have never tried, Karen, this is a Rose for you to try.
Yeah, fun.
I would really love, by the way, these like romantic suspensey, like twisty turny thriller romances to come back.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we've kind of, the genre has embraced dark without somehow embracing like the craft of the thriller, which feels, like it should.
It's interesting, yeah. Well, I think one of the things, I think one of the fears that people have is like, is it going to be enough romance for me, right? If I'm a romance reader, is it going to be enough
And I would say, like, Karen writes, these are romances. Like, if you read the back cover copy, it is crafted like romance cover copy. Like, you don't have to dig for the romance in there. I don't think they're as sexy as like current romances are, but I also like, I don't find that to be difficult for me. Like, I think it's, if you love a like page turner, this is for you.
This is the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you said sexy and I've got my last one, I guess, just like is perfect. So I'm going to talk about, apparently it is a trilogy, but I'm going to talk about a pair of books by Tiffany Rice. The first one is called The Red. The second one is called The Rose. The third one I've not read. It's called The Pearl. But in this, so I'm going to talk about them kind of together because in order to understand The Rose, you have to understand The Red to me. And in The Red, the story is, and it's really great. I really, like, you guys, nobody really writes erotica like Tiffany. I think that these books are so, but also like what I really liked is like she writes erotica that is like an erotic romance that is also deeply, deeply like imaginative. Okay. So in The Red, we have Mona Lisa St. James is the heroine's name. And Mona is working in an art gallery. And what happens is like a mysterious man comes in and the name of her gallery, I think, is The Red. And so this man comes in and says, like, I will save the gallery if basically for a year you will, like, do sexy stuff with me. And all the sexy stuff is like inspired by the paintings and the art in the gallery. And it's really fucking great. And it turns out that like this guy's name is like Malcolm. And it turns out like kind of what she like discovers at one point is that he himself is almost like there's like a kind of paranormal-ish element where he doesn't really exist outside of the painting that he's in. And he is setting her up with like his like grandson or whatever. Like she ends up with the grandson. And then and he's like an earl or something, even though it's like a modern, it's like a modern book. It's not old timey. And then in the one I'm going to talk about now is The Rose. So in the second novel, we get their daughter, Leah. And it is her graduation party from college. She's 21. And like, you guys, this book fucking slaps. And what happens in this one is, first of all, what's really funny is like, I don't typically I have some mixed feelings, I'll just say. I do love it. I'm interested in it in like a second generation book because you're kind of like, what's happening? But in this second generation book, we basically understand that like, okay, her parents, the hero and heroine of The Red, were actually like have just kept having fabulous sex with each other and everyone else for 20 years. And so what is their daughter going to be like? Well, she's a 21-year-old madam. She essentially has figured out a way to like, like she and her friends are essentially like, they call themselves, I think, like the Ladies Garden and Tennis Club, but really like what they do is like they contract out with all these like, hot Englishmen and have all this great sex. And on the day of her birthday, this graduation party, her father presents her, she's obsessed with Greek mythology, presents her with a cup called a calyx. It's right? It's known as, it's the rose calyx. So it's like beautifully, engraved with like a roses, like a climbing rose on it. And it's, hundreds of years old because it's like a Greek artifact. And so then at the same party is August Bowman, and he's like in his early 30s. She's like 21 or 22. And so she's kind of like, what's this guy doing here? And she even says, I think, like, he's too old to be my friend, but kind of too young to be my parents' friends. But it turns out that he wants this artifact. And so it was in the blurb, it says, I haven't read this in a while either, but I immediately thought of it. The cup itself was used in the ceremonies of Eros, and it like essentially can bring like sexual fantasies to life. And so he's like, hey, let's, drink out of this cup together and then have lots of sexy Greek themed adventures together. And you know what? They do. And it's fucking great.
I'm so happy for them and for you.
Yeah. And like, but these two, and I realized, I don't think I even knew the Pearl was out. And I was like, I got to read these. So all three of them
so
together,
sexy, those
it's
books.
like called the Godwicks. Like, yeah. And you know what, for me, I'm not into priests, so I never really liked the original
That
Sinner
first series, yeah.
because it was just like kind of not for me. But like this one, it's like all of the great, super, super, super sexy, but like kind of with like the fun vibe of art. In the first one, the red, and then Greek mythology. Yeah. And this one, the rose.
Amazing. All right. Last one,
Sarah, the pressure.
I know, the pressure.
Maybe we'll just have a fire hose of like lightning
name.
round roses at the end.
Well, because I realized I've written 2.
Really?
3. Oh, I had a story I wanted to tell about this.
Okay,
wait, we're going to pause for story time for Sarah. Because here's something really interesting. So I wrote a series that was set in a casino. And the series is called The Rules for Scoundrels. And the first book in the series is called A Rogue by Any Other Name, a play on the word rose. And when I got the covers of those books are very iconic in the sense of like they didn't look like any other covers at the time. They were like really like a single color wash. But they still had these like real, and that first book, A Rogue by Another Name, the cover's red, and the heroine just looks like a princess. Like she just looks like a fairy tale princess on the cover. She's gorgeous, and she's holding a white rose on the cover. And I think that at the time, Tom Egner, who was the artistic director at Avon, was really invested in the covers of these books. Like he is the reason, a little bit of romance history, he is basically the reason why like those kind of single dress covers came to be so iconic in the genre in historicals. And he like had that rose on there, and then I wrote my second book in that series, which was One Good Earl Deserves a Lover. And Pippa, the heroine of that book, is a scientist, and she is working on cultivating and breeding roses. Like and over the course of this book, she actually like crossbreeds a new type of rose. And I didn't realize I had already written sort of 90% of that book when the first book came out and the cover came out and there was a rose on it. And then on the second cover, there is a rose on that cover too. And then I was like, oh wait, are they just giving me roses now?
Yeah,
like,
we're doing a thing.
Do I have to put roses in every book? And so it's interesting because I think like sometimes I just like wanted to talk about that because I felt like sometimes like something ends up as part of your like it ends up on a cover, or it ends up being like part of the publishing in the publishing system. It arrives kind of on your desk and you think like, oh, now do I like, is this a thing I do now? And I actually don't think I did do it. Like, I think I was like, no, I'm like, it's a little too on the nose for me.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just call out Pippa because I did. I mean, like that is like the roses are very important to the plot of that book. I mean, they're not super. Listen, it's still.
Well, but you're like, it's fine.
We're not like watching her splice the,
right, like Helen
the
for
stems
orchids.
of roses. Yes. But we are, yeah. But a rose is actually like important to that plot, and especially in the epilogue of that book. And then yesterday I realized later in the day that I have actually written a character who has the name Rose.
I love this. Remember when I asked Jane, I was like, this is like Luke. Have you written some Lukes before? And she was like, oh yeah, for sure.
Lila Rose is the heroine of my short story or my novella, A Duke Worth Falling For. And Lila is an American photographer whose career is kind of in the toilet because she blew the whistle on a serial assaulter in like a billionaire serial assaulter, and basically like lost her career. And so she's kind of like off in England licking her wounds on a private estate that's owned by a handsome secret duke. And, if that seems, and he is happy to also lick her wounds. And so
but not lick a wall. That's back to Heathcliff.
No, he is not a wall licker.
Yeah.
No, unfortunately, that's not Max's style. His name is Max. Also, I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention Stephanie Rose, too, who is lovely and came to Fate of Mates Live with us one year. Stephanie writes these like really wonderful, kind of soft contemporary romances, often with kind of like gruff dudes and the soft women who love them. So check out Stephanie's books too. And then, but I think my pick right now, it's got to be Derek Craven.
Yeah.
Sarah Fielding writes under the name S.R. Fielding for Sarah Rose Fielding.
Correct.
And one of the greatest sex scenes in romance has to be when Derek Craven lays her down on the bed and then covers her, sprinkles rose petals across her, and then just does the business.
Destroys her and the bed.
Perfection. Perfection. So, I'm going to keep it simple.
Yeah.
And that's my pick for the final one. Number 6, Dreaming of You by Lisa Kleypas. Featuring Sarah Rose Fielding.
Sarah Rose Fielding. Now, I will also tell everybody, check show notes this week because I found on Goodreads 2 different lists, which were kind of like, I sort of like, was like, wait, I think that's some of the other way. I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. One was just a list of romances with Rose in the title. There are many. And then the second one was a list someone had made of books with characters with named Rose. Now that one's not romance only, but there's a lot of romances in there. And so if you want to find your own dozen roses, Goodreads can help you, right? So I did find some like fun lists.
I mean, and also we haven't talked about some of the real classics either, like Julie Garwood's Rose, like For the Roses series. Yeah. Roses. There are a lot of roses. I don't know what to say. Roses are romantic, I'm told. Listen, here's my thing about roses. I think roses are lovely. I really love. I don't know how you feel about flowers, actually, Jen, but I really love flowers.
I love
flowers.
When
people send me flowers. I love it.
Yes.
I love flowers being in my house. I love fresh flowers. Roses, I could really honestly give or take.
Yeah.
But I know people really love them, and I hope you all get them if that's what you want right now.
Yeah. And if not, if you don't want actual roses, you can just read about roses or rose scented body wash or whatever you want. Rosies, rosas.
Rosies, rosas.
any other roses are here for you. Jessie Rose defending her home against bad guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's not to love?
Yeah. Amazing.
Perfect.
Where are we?
Well, we're going to wrap it up.
Oh, I have something I want to talk about, actually.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I want to discuss the fact that at the beginning of March, I'm in Rhode Island. I want to talk about that event, too. Hang on.
Okay. Well, while you're doing that, I will say it is, if you're listening to this on Wednesday or Thursday, like of the day, like the week that it drops, which would be February 11th, I think, or 12th, then you can, if you're in Chicago, come see me tomorrow night on the night of the 12th at Babe Sports Bar. I will be talking about a WNBA romance from 831 Stories called Rooting Interest. I'm pretty excited about that. And then on the 21st in the morning, I will be at the White Oak Library, which is in Romeoville, which is like kind of out far in the suburbs from the city. But then if you're like a suburban person, you can come see me. I'll just make sure to put both of those events in show notes. And Sarah, tell us about your Rhode Island event.
Yes. So this is so fun. On Saturday, March 7th, I will be in Bristol, Rhode Island, which is also, fun fact, everyone, where I got married. At a ball at the Ballrooms and Beyond conference with Adriana Herrera, Joanna Shoup, Elizabeth Everett, Caroline Linden, Ginny B. Moore, and Kate Canterbury, who is moderating a bunch of panels there. All these panels are free to attend. The whole day is inside Linden Place, which is a mansion that was built in 1810 in Bristol. And you can hear, there are a number of panels about, about blue stockings and harlots and how historical romance is feminist and the future of historical romance. There's a book signing. There's a lunch if you want to join us for lunch. And there is going to be a very, very fun cocktail party at 4:30 in the evening that day. You do have to buy tickets to the cocktail party, but we promise it'll be worth it. And space is limited for the whole event. So if you are planning on joining for any part of it, you need to sign up on the Linden Place website. So space is limited. I know tickets are selling pretty quickly. You can go to lindenplace.org/romancecon to register, and we'll put obviously the links in show notes. But we hope you'll join us, and it'll be a really fun celebration of historicals. And I'm actually really excited. Linden Place is beautiful, and I'm really excited that the panels are open to the public and free because I think that's great. But come for lunch and stay for cocktails, and let's have a fun time.
That sounds amazing. So, you just have to hang out with other romance people in the month of our struggle. So go see Wuthering Heights. I'm making air quotes as I say that, right? Go to one of these fun, right? Go to one of these fun events, right? Read some fun roses in your romance, like whatever you need to do.
Yeah. Be silly. Embrace whimsy.
I'm going to try.
I know. It's not really it's tough out here, but I'm trying for it too. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Happy Valentine's Day. We hope that you are able to celebrate however you would like to celebrate this holiday that is slightly weird. I'm Sarah McLean, and I'm here with my friend Jen Prokop. We are Fated Mates. You can find us every Wednesday wherever you get your podcasts and online at fatedmates.net, where you can click on show notes and see all of the lists of books that we talk about today, including all of the links that we've mentioned would be in show notes today. Also, you can find us online on Instagram and Threads at Fated Mates Pod and on Blue Sky at Fated Mates. We are all around for the month of February, as Jen said. I'll be in Rhode Island in March. And other than that, we absolutely love having conversations with you and with our other members of our Discord. You can join the Discord by joining our Patreon, which is at fatedmates.net/Patreon. That gets you one extra episode of the podcast every month and access to the Discord where a few thousand other people are talking about romance all the time. I'm sure there are about 70 new Rose-related romances in there right now for you to go check out. So that is our Patreon. And don't forget to stay tuned. Right now, you'll be able to hear a sneak peek of the audiobook of Tarina Deaton's Day in the Night. Thanks again to Tarina for sponsoring this week's episode.
Prologue. Abby pulled the cast iron pan out of the oven and set it on top of the stove. She stabbed the beef tenderloin with the digital thermometer and waited for the reading. 145 degrees. Perfect. By the time Tony got home, it would be done resting and be a beautiful medium rare. The salad was in the fridge, the vinaigrette blended, the couscous cooked, and the fresh green beans were ready to go into the steamer pot. At 5:45, she threw the beans into the pot, then lit the candles on the dining room table. "Alexa, play dinner playlist." Soft, easy listening music came from the recessed speakers Tony had installed when he'd built the house. She'd always thought they were excessive, but Tony had only listened to her input about the kitchen. She transferred the beans and couscous to covered serving dishes, grabbed the salad from the fridge, and placed everything on the table, already set with the good china. Her stomach fluttered, and she placed her hand low on her abdomen. Was it nerves about telling Tony, or the little bean she'd learned about that morning? She glanced at her watch and returned to the kitchen to slice the meat. After transferring it to a serving platter, she placed it in front of Tony's place setting. All that was left to do was wait for him to come home. 40 minutes later, the candles were dripping wax onto the crystal holders. She checked to see if there were any text messages, despite the lack of notifications or previous messages. His lack of communication had been happening more frequently over the past few months. Was it really that hard to tell her he'd be a few minutes late? Abby blinked and looked up, pressing her ring finger to the inner corner of her eye. It didn't mean anything. He'd been working to close a big account at work. He had told her that. The alarm panel beeped 3 times. "Garage door open." Abby stood and plastered a smile on her face. "Hi," she said when he entered the dining room. "What's all this?" He pulled at his tie to loosen it. "Dinner. Beef tenderloin, green beans, and Israeli couscous." "I had dinner with a client." "Oh. Would it have been so hard to send her a text?" He picked up a green bean and took a bite. "It's cold anyway." He threw the rest of the bean onto the plate. "I had it ready for 6 when you're usually home." "I had to work. Someone has to pay for this house." A spark of anger flashed through her, and she tamped it down. She hadn't asked for the house. It was too big, too ostentatious. There were rooms she only went into to clean. "It's fine. I'll pack it for your lunch tomorrow." "Don't bother. I have a working lunch." Gritting her teeth, she took a deep breath. "I have something else for you." She picked up the long, thin box she'd set next to his place setting and held it out to him. Fuck. He took the box. "Is it our anniversary?" She blinked. "No, that's in 4 months." "Then what's this?" "Open it." She held her breath as he lifted the lid. He didn't speak for several heartbeats, just stared at the plastic stick with the digital display that read, "Pregnant." He finally looked at her. "Is this a joke?" Her stomach plummeted. "No, it's real. I found out this morning." "Did you do this on purpose?" She flinched at his harsh tone and shook her head. "No. I was on antibiotics a couple of months ago when I had a sinus infection. The doctor said they probably counteracted my birth control pills." Tony tossed the box and pregnancy test onto the table. "Let me know when you get rid of it." "What?" It came out as a breath. He didn't say that. He brushed past her. "You know how I feel about kids." She followed him. "I know, and I was fine with that. I didn't mean to get pregnant, but you can't expect me to get an abortion now that I am." He stopped abruptly inside their bedroom and turned. "I can, and I do. I was very clear before we got married about being child-free. I told you if it was a deal breaker, we'd end it. You said you were fine with it. So now you decide, me or that." He pointed at her stomach. "Tony!" "End of discussion." He slammed the door closed. Chapter 1. 5 years later. Christian Tinker Knight stood at the back of the courtroom, feet braced apart, arms crossed, chin slightly lifted. He stared at the girl sitting in the witness box. Her small frame and pigtails made her appear much younger than 12. The prosecutor stood beside the witness stand. "Melanie, is the person who hurt you in this room?"
"Yes," she whispered.
"I need you to speak louder, Melanie." The judge's voice was gentle but firm. The little girl hunched her shoulders and looked down, but did as the judge asked. "Yes." "Melanie," the prosecutor said, "can you point to that person?" Her eyes jerked up and briefly found Tinker at the rear of the room. He remained stoic. "It was..." She faltered and looked quickly at Tinker. "It was John." She pointed to the man sitting at the defense table. "Thank you, Melanie. No further questions, Your Honor," the prosecutor said. The judge looked at the public defender. "No questions, Your Honor." The judge looked at Melanie. "Thank you, Melanie. You can go." Melanie bolted out of the chair, past her guardian ad litem as she dashed down the short aisle and launched herself at Tinker. He caught her in a tight hug when she wrapped her arms and legs around him, burying her face in his neck. Sobs racked her frail body, and he felt the old familiar rage begin to build. Giving in to it and breaking every bone in her mom's ex-boyfriend's body would be extremely satisfying, but it would do neither him nor Melanie any good. He squelched the urge and got Melanie the hell out of there, not waiting for her guardian ad litem to reach them. "Melanie!" Her mom stood from her seat across from the courtroom doors and rushed to them. Melanie reached for her mom, and Tinker transferred her over. "She did really well," Amy, the guardian ad litem, said when she caught up with them. "She was a champ," Tinker said. "She's a brave little girl." Melanie tilted her head to look at Tinker. "Only 'cause you were there." "Nah, you'd have done it even if I wasn't there." He tugged the end of her pigtail. She smiled, which was what he was hoping for. "I can't thank you enough," her mom, Becky, said. "I don't know where we'd be without your help these last few months." Tinker ran a hand over his short beard. "It's all part of what Vaca does." "Let me thank you with dinner. You can come over tonight." Becky looked at him with stars in her eyes. He knew it was more than the hero worship her daughter had. Becky had been dropping hints that she'd welcome more than the occasional drive-by he did as part of VACA, Veterans Against Child Abuse. She was sweet, but he knew her type, a woman who defined herself by her man. There was nothing wrong with it, as long as the man valued her. "It goes against VACA rules," he said gently. She knew that, and even if it wasn't against the rules, he wouldn't get involved with a woman in such a raw and emotional state. Some men might take advantage, but he did not. Plus, she had serious relationship written all over her. He didn't do serious, and he didn't do single moms. Too big of a chance the kid would get attached. He was not fit to be a substitute father figure, and he wouldn't let a kid get emotionally involved. "Are we ever going to see you again?" Melanie's bottom lip trembled. "Of course. The whole club's taking you to school on Monday." Her mouth opened in awe and her eyes sparkled. "Really?" "Yeah, your mom didn't tell you?" He shifted his gaze to Becky. She looked down. "I didn't want to get her hopes up." Tinker pressed his lips together, then gave his attention back to her daughter. "We'll be at your house at 7:45 to pick you up. I gotta get back to work. Can I get a hug before I go?" Melanie reached for his neck, and he hugged her close. She kissed his cheek and said, "Thanks for making me brave." He swallowed hard, twice. "Thanks for being brave." The wrench slipped and he scraped his knuckles against the engine block. "Shit!" Tinker dropped the wrench and shook his hand. "You better not get any blood on Graham's floor." He looked to his right as Paige, one of his bosses, approached him from across the garage. In her 4-inch heels and tight knee-length skirt, she didn't look like she would be the chief operations officer for a security company that sometimes ran tactical operations in non-permissible environments. But Paige was a chameleon. She was as comfortable running face first down a wall or staring down the sights of an M4 as she was schmoozing new clients. She was an attractive woman. He wasn't ashamed to admit he'd thought about suggesting a hot and dirty fling since she'd held a similar viewpoint on relationships. But even if she didn't sign his paychecks, he didn't shit where he ate. And she'd recently settled into domestic bliss with her boyfriend. Come to think of it, he'd lost a few of his teammates to long-term relationships. Nash had fallen for Addison, who sometimes joined them for training and operations. Shane was ass-deep in the Guatemalan jungle protecting some pyramid his woman found. Fuck. Tinker hoped that shit wasn't catching. How'd it go today? He checked out her arm as she rested both on the frame of the truck he was working on. No indication her wound bothered her. She'd been shot a few months ago. It had been his fault. He'd waited for the shooter to spill his guts instead of taking the guy out as soon as he could. She did good. Prosecutors go in for max time with no chance of parole. She nodded. How are you? He glanced at her sideways before twisting the cap off the wiper fluid reservoir. He knew it was full. He'd filled it 3 days ago. But busy hands and all that shit. Do we have any jobs coming up? Feeling the need to shoot something? Something like that? He screwed the cap back on. Danny's here. I'm sure she'd be happy to get in the ring with you. His mouth twisted. Thanks, but I don't think getting punched in the face by my kid's sister is going to help. Besides, Danny had started holding back when she realized she could beat his ass. He hated that they all knew what had happened to him and Danny. Everyone at Leonidas had always supported them both and had helped him get his record expunged so he could work with Vaca, but he didn't like it. It wasn't even like Danny hid her past. She was open about being a survivor. She talked to survivor support groups and used her status as a champion MMA fighter to advocate for victims and raise money for programs. For him, her openness was another reminder he had failed her. Paige stared at him long enough to make him uncomfortable. What? I'm worried about you, Tink, she said. Why? This is your, third case in a month? Something like that. I thought you and Graham were cool with the time I give to Vaca. If they weren't, he would have to reevaluate some things. He wasn't willing to stop volunteering with them. We are. That's not the issue, she said. Then what's the issue? I can see the toll it's taking on you. You're not hiding it as well as you think. He huffed out a half laugh. Have you been taking classes with Addison? No, but I'd like you to talk to her. Or someone else, but you need to talk to someone. We need you at 100%, and so do those kids. I'm good, Paige. You don't need to worry about me. He had a tight control of his emotions. Sorry, it's part of the job description. Talk to Addison. You can consider it part of your yearly psych eval, but I want you to talk to her. He rubbed his head. Okay, I'll call her this week. Thank you. Danny said the Knights are having a party tonight. You going? The irony of belonging to a club called Tarnished Knights wasn't lost on him. The last thing he wanted to do was hang around a bunch of people, but he wanted to be alone even less. Yeah, you? She shook her head. No, Ash's parents are driving up from Savannah for dinner. He grabbed the rag hanging on the frame and wiped his hands. Wow, meeting the parents already? She moved her arms when he waved her off to drop the hood. Technically, I've already met them. This is the official meeting. Tinker smirked, knowing she'd hooked up with her boyfriend at his sister's wedding. Good luck with that. Yeah, thanks. She flipped him off for good measure. I'm here if you need to talk. I know. She headed off to the exit. Have fun. Don't get arrested. He grunted and shoved the rag into his back pocket. He appreciated that she didn't push him to talk. She'd drop everything if he needed her to, even dinner with the new boyfriend's parents. He picked up the wrench he had dropped earlier. A few drinks, maybe a hot woman with no expectations, and he'd be fine. Chapter 2. Going Out with Friends. The front of the large antebellum plantation house was lit up by spotlights. Abby peered through the windshield as Lindsay parked at the end of a line of cars on the side of the gravel drive. "I'm so excited you came out tonight." Lindsay squeezed Abby's arm as they walked from the car and linked their elbows. Abby twisted the corner of her mouth. She'd finally given in to Lindsay's badgering to go out with her. She'd kind of run out of excuses. She had absolutely no responsibilities that weekend, and she'd even caught up on grading and lesson plans during the in-school teacher workday, so she didn't have that to fall back on. "Come on." Lindsay must have sensed her hesitation. "You promised you'd try to have fun. You deserve a night out, Abby. Let loose. Have fun." "I have fun," she said indignantly. "Going to the aquarium every weekend doesn't count." Abby gave her a baleful look and sighed. "Fine. Who is this party for anyway?" Lindsay shrugged. "I don't think it's for anyone. They're just having a party." Abby stared at the row of motorcycles parked at the top of the drive. "Who's they?" "The Knights." "The White Knights? The Templar Knights? Gladys Knight?" "The Tarnished Knights. They're a motorcycle club." Abby stopped in her tracks, causing Lindsay to jerk on her arm. "Lindsay, we can't be at a... She glanced around, checking for anyone nearby. "A criminal hideout?" she finished with a hiss. "Oh my God!" Lindsay rolled her entire head and yanked on her arm. "First of all, it's not much of a hideout if they're throwing a party and inviting people. Second, they're not the kind of motorcycle club in your books. Most of them are military veterans, and half of them are Veterans Against Child Abuse members." Abby ignored the dig about her favorite romance genre. "Really?" "Really. The worst any of them does is smoke weed and get drunk." Abby chewed her lip. That didn't sound so bad. Hell, she'd smoked the occasional joint in college. Lindsay stopped and faced her. "I've been to their parties before, and it's nothing worse than any other party or nightclub. It's probably safer because they keep an eye on things. I promise, if you're at all uncomfortable or get weirded out, we'll leave. And I know one of the members, and she's a solid person." "She?" That got Abby's attention. "Yeah, she. I told you they weren't that kind of motorcycle club." Abby closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She needed this. She'd promised herself she'd start getting out more often and try to remember who she was before her life went to hell and back. Old resentment and anger rose to the surface, but she pushed it down. She couldn't change the past, and getting angry about it had never done her any good. She opened her eyes. "Okay, lead the way." "Yay!" Lindsay did a little wiggle, then linked their arms back together. "Let's go have fun, and maybe get you laid." Abby's jaw dropped. "What? No, that's not." Lindsay threw her head back and laughed. There was a full-size suit of armor in the entryway, a literal tarnished knight. The seams and joints of the armor were patinaed and rusted. It stood with both gauntlets resting on the end of the pommel of an upright sword, point down. The breastplate and shoulder pieces were etched with delicate filigree. If it was authentic, which Abby doubted since iron and steel didn't patina the way it was on the armor, it was likely ceremonial rather than functional. The art historian part of her brain perked up and whispered, "Look at it. Touch it." Lindsay pulled her further into the house before Abby could become that person at the party. A roped-off staircase led upstairs. The downstairs was divided into 4 large rooms, 2 on either side of the center hallway. Lindsay stopped inside the first room on the left and searched through the crowd. She waved, and a woman across the room waved back and made her way to them. "Come on, I'll introduce you to Catherine." "Who's Catherine?" Abby asked. "It's her house. Her husband is the president of the club." The older woman was a little taller than Abby, and she had her waist-length salt and pepper hair pulled back into a long braid. She pulled Lindsay into a quick hug. "I'm so glad you made it." "Thanks. Catherine, this is Abby, one of my best friends. Abby, this is Catherine, one of the coolest people I've ever met." Catherine laughed. "I don't know about coolest, but thanks." "Don't let her fool you," Lindsay said. She's lived all over the world, used to fly C-17s, nursed her husband back to health when everyone said he'd probably never walk again, and wrote a book about it. Wow, that was impressive. Catherine shook her head. We all do what we have to do when there's no other choice. She was also profound. Abby felt like she'd been doing what she had to do for a very long time. Anyway, Catherine said, welcome. Beer, wine, and other drinks are at the bar in the back room. There's also burgers, chicken, and more sides than I want to keep as leftovers, so please help yourselves. Thank you, Abby said. Thanks, Lindsay said. Let's get some drinks. The bar was manned by 2 guys in black vests. Glancing around, Abby noticed several of the men and a few of the women, including Catherine, wore similar vests. The large patch on the back of their vests bore a depiction of the suit of armor in the foyer. They wandered into the rooms on the other side of the house. There were probably 100 or more people in the house, but it didn't feel crowded since they were scattered throughout the rooms. She also saw several people out on the porch through the open French doors. Ooh, there's someone else I want you to meet. Lindsay led her to one of the small tables in the other room at the front of the house. The armor was visible in the foyer. They'd essentially walked in a full circle. Lindsay! A dark-haired woman jumped out of her chair and hugged Lindsay, rocking from side to side. She let her go and looked at Abby. Who are you? Abby was surprised at the excitedness of her question, like a kid on a playground making a new friend. Abby? Hi, Abby. I'm Angela, or Angie, or Ange. I'll answer to all of them. How do you know Lindsay? We work together. Abby didn't know what to make of the overly friendly woman. You're a teacher too? That's so cool. What do you teach? Sit down, join us. This is Danny, my best friend. Angela sat and patted the blonde woman next to her on the head. Don't mind Angie, Danny said, batting Angela's hand away from her head. She gets excited when she meets new people. Like a puppy, but she doesn't pee on you. Unless you pay extra. Shut up. It's just nice to meet new women who I don't know through work and aren't biker chicks. Angela's eyebrows pinched together and she leaned forward. You're not a biker chick, are you? Lindsay laughed and Abby glared at her as they took seats at the table. She had a direct view of the suit of armor from her seat. No, I'm not a biker chick. Oh, good. What's good? A curvy brunette joined them and sat in the last vacant chair. Abby noticed Angela's side-eye Danny, who rolled her eyes. Hey, Julia, Angela said. Not working this weekend? No, I heard the Knights were having a party and made sure I asked for the night off. She looked at Abby. We haven't met. I'm Julia. Abby. She waved in greeting. Did y'all come with one of the guys? No, Lindsay said. I'm friends with Catherine. Abby caught the tone of Lindsay's voice, but didn't understand the reason behind it. Julia's questions seemed innocent enough. I'm going to get a refill, Danny said. Can I get anyone anything? I'll take another, Abby said, holding up her beer. If she was going to let loose, she needed a little social lubrication. Me too, Lindsay said. Danny took her empty glass and left. What do you teach, Abby? Angela asked. Art and fashion design. Ooh, you're a teacher? Julia asked. Yes, we both teach at Charleston STEAM Academy. That's so cute. It must be so fun to teach kids to finger paint. Of all the condescending, fake-ass crap she'd ever heard, now she understood Lindsay's tone from earlier. A commotion in the foyer distracted her before she could think of a snappy retort about her Master of Fine Arts and year interning as a restorationist in Prague. A tall man with dark blonde hair and a lot of tattoos held the elbow of a woman as he pointed toward the front door. He was attractive in a bad boy from the wrong side of the tracks kind of way, even as he scowled at the woman he was talking to. Honestly, he looked like a cover model from one of her favorite MC romances, which, yes, may have influenced her opinions of motorcycle clubs and what would be going on at the party. She liked her forbidden fantasy on the page, not in real life. The man let go of the woman and stood with his arms crossed while the woman appeared to plead with him. Who's he talking to? Angela asked. They were all watching the interaction. No idea, Lindsay said. I've never seen her before. Looks like a lover's quarrel, though. Angela scoffed. Tink doesn't do lover's quarrels. Tink? Abby asked. What kind of name was Tink? It's short for Tinker. It's his call sign. Danny set their beers down. Julia tipped her chair back to get a better look at the man as he walked away from the woman. Dangerous is fucking sexy, but not for long term. I wouldn't want a convicted criminal around all the time. Danny slammed her glass on the table. Why don't you fuck off and shut the fuck up about something you know nothing about? Sorry. Julia stood and flounced away. Abby stared wide-eyed at Danny as she took a long drink. He's Danny's brother, Angela explained. She's a little protective. Oh, Abby said. Does Julia know? It doesn't matter, Danny said. She's a gossip and a bitch, and she's repeating shit she's heard people talking about without knowing the full story. Abby almost asked what the full story was, but it wasn't her business. She didn't like to gossip, and Danny didn't seem to be in the mood to explain anyway. Angela spread her hands on the table. You know what we need? Shots. There's a bottle of Fireball behind the bar. I'm gonna get it. Chapter 3. The Night. Abby wandered out of the bathroom and into the room with the bar. The bar with the Fireball. Whew, that was some dangerous stuff. She'd been expecting Goldschlager cinnamon taste, but the whiskey had been smooth and surprisingly tasty. Angela had been able to talk her into more than a few shots. Angela was fun, and Abby was having fun, which kind of surprised her. She hadn't been to a party where people just had fun in so long she'd forgotten what it was like. No one to schmooze, no one to impress or make sure they were introduced to someone else. Or get them to make a big donation to the school. Just hanging out with friends and having fun. She might be at her limit, though. Of alcohol, not fun. The room was a little wonky. Lindsay was in the front room standing really close to a tall, good-looking guy in a short-sleeved button-down. She was doing that thing with her hair where she played with the ends of it. She said it made guys think about twisting it in their hands. Abby wrinkled her nose. The guy reminded her of Tony, so clean-cut and put together, not a hair out of place. Not like the guy from earlier with the tight black t-shirt and tattoos and hair that looked like it had never seen the inside of a gel bottle. She'd caught glimpses of him throughout the night, and he'd gotten more attractive each time she saw him, and it wasn't because of the whiskey goggles. Even when he was scowly and broody, which was every time she had seen him, probably brooding about his lover's quarrel. Had a guy ever brooded over her? She sighed and made a conscious effort to swerve away from Melancholy Town. She didn't want to be that girl at the party who drunk cried. She spied the armor in the foyer and glanced around. But she could be that girl at the party who took a closer look at the suit of armor. Tink gritted his teeth. He still couldn't believe Becky had shown up at the house. How had she even known about the party? She must have heard someone from Vaca talking about it because they didn't mingle socially with their clients, but she wouldn't say how she found out. She'd been there to find him. He would have blown her off and ignored her, but she'd thrown him a guilt trip about how Melanie needed a strong, dependable father figure, and if he'd only give Becky a chance, she knew they'd make a great couple. It was complete bullshit, and it pissed him off that she was using her daughter to troll for men. He was antsy and couldn't stay still, couldn't hold a decent conversation, couldn't even finish a bottle of beer. He had tried playing pool, but there was too much downtime between turns to brood and imagine all the shitty relationships Becky would continue to find herself in, and more importantly, continue to put Melanie in. The party wasn't providing the distraction he wanted. He needed to leave, go for a ride to clear his head. He found Danny in the back room talking to a couple of the club members. He caught her attention. "Hey, I'm gonna take off." She frowned. "You okay?" "Yeah, just got a lot of shit in my head. Gonna go for a ride." "Where to?" "Aristo." "Be careful. Text me when you make it back." "Yes, Mom." He kissed her on the cheek. "You around on Sunday?" she asked. "Should be. Why?" "I need a sparring partner." Which meant she was probably going to kick his ass for the mom comment. "Where's Eddie?" "Got his wisdom teeth yanked today. Doesn't want me punching him for some reason." "Yeah, sure." Eddie was probably getting the better end of the deal. He headed down the hall to the front door, waving to a couple of people as he passed. A woman was standing in front of Ned the Knight, staring intently at it. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Is there something I can help you with?" She turned her head and looked at him, her light brown eyes framed by thick, dark lashes. "Do you know the origins of this?" "Ned? Who's Ned?" She was a little unsteady on her feet, but she wasn't slurring. "The suit of armor. Ned the Knight," he said. She blinked at him several times. "But Ned begins with an N." A smile broke out at that ridiculous comment. She turned back to the armor and tucked a strand of dark, wavy hair behind her ear before hovering her fingers over the armor. "I'm wondering if it's authentic. The filigree work is fantastic, but steel wouldn't patina like this, which makes me think it's a replica. It's a decent imitation, based on mid to late 16th century, probably. It would have been for ceremonial use instead of functional. They wouldn't have spent that kind of money on a suit of armor that was going to get hacked on by swords and shot up with arrow bolts." She reminded him of Angie when she got excited about something. She was adorable. "Are you a historian?" "Art history major." She looked down and stepped back from the armor. "Sorry, I get a little carried away sometimes." "Don't apologize for being passionate about something." Her smile lit up her face, and it sent a jolt of desire through him as the image of her smiling up at him, her thick dark hair spread around her face, flashed through his mind. "What are you passionate about?" she asked. He froze. No one had ever asked him that before. Not in a non-sexual kind of way, and he didn't think that's what she was asking about. He almost said protecting kids, but that would lead to awkward questions about why they needed protection, and he didn't want to scare her off. His mind was oddly calm for the first time in 24 hours. He wanted to keep talking to this woman who gave him a small history lesson on the club mascot in the middle of a party, especially if it distracted him. "Choppers." "Motorcycles or helicopters?" she asked. "Custom motorcycles. I build them." He wasn't sure why he told her that instead of security specialist. They'd always been a hobby, something he did because he loved building with his hands. "A long time ago, I wanted to be the next East Coast Choppers and have my own big-name shop." "Why didn't you?" He crossed his arms and shrugged. "Life got in the way." "Hate it when it does that." She leaned forward, close to his upper arm. "Who drew that?" He looked at the tattoo she was pointing at. "Same guy who tattooed it." "Wow, he's a really good artist." An irrational spark of jealousy ignited in his chest. She leaned back and looked him down and back up. She rocked back on her heels a little when she raised her head from her examination. "You are sexy." He couldn't have stopped his grin if someone had offered him money. "Why do you say it like that?" "Like what?" "Like you're agreeing with something I said." "What did you say?" She shook her head. "Wait, not you. Julia said you were sexy." Tink frowned. "You know Julia?" She didn't seem like the kind of woman Julia would be friends with. "Nope, just met her. Danny yelled at her." That didn't surprise him at all. Danny did not like Julia. "You know Danny?" "Just met her too. I like her better than Julia, though." Tink shook his head. Who was this woman? "What's your name?" "Abby." "Abby." He stepped closer. "Do you want to get out of here?" "To do what?" "Go for a ride." "To where?" He unfolded his arms and placed his hands on her hips. "Your place, my place, any place." Abby glanced down at her hip. "Does it work?" "Does what work?" "Just asking women to go somewhere with you to have sex?" "I wasn't actually thinking about sex." Weirdly, he hadn't been. He had just had an urge to have her close. Maybe just go somewhere with this smart, adorable woman. But the woman usually asks me. She looked like she was contemplating it, but then took a step back and wagged her finger at him. Nope. No way. No hot, sexy, tattooed biker guys. Tink grinned again. So you think I'm sexy and hot? And tattooed. A woman with dark blonde hair joined them and draped her arm over Abby's shoulders. What you doing, Abs? Looking at the night. I can see that. She gave Tinker an appreciative up and down. He preferred it when Abby looked at him. Not that night. That night. Abby pointed at the suit of armor. Uh-huh, her friend said. I already told that one he was too sexy. She swung her finger around to point at him. Tink chuckled. Abby, are you flirting? No, Abby said indignantly. She turned an unsure gaze to Tink. Was I flirting? She shook her head. I don't flirt, especially not with hot, sexy, tattooed biker guys. Why especially? He braced for the kiss-off. This was the point where civilians judged him for his looks and decided he was too dangerous for their delicate sensibilities. Because having tattoos and riding a motorcycle put him in the dredges of society column before they ever had a chance to know him. Because it never turns out the way it does in the books? That was the absolute last thing he expected to hear. What books? Her friend grinned. Yeah, Abby, what books? Tinker could see the blush spreading across her cheeks. I gotta go. Abby spun out of her friend's arm and walked away. Now he was thoroughly confused. What books? Her friend winked and followed Abby. Seriously, what was so embarrassing about a book? He ran a hand through his close-cut hair and fought the urge to chase after her. He had a feeling it would make her run faster and farther, but he could feel her slipping through his fingers, like a dream he tried to hold on to as he woke up. Tink. He turned as the club president, David Pothole McComb, came down the hall. Hey, Prez. Catherine said she saw you heading this way. Are you taking off already? I was, but I'd changed my mind. Cool. Do you have time to take a look at my bike? It's been running rough the last few days. Tink hesitated. He wanted to keep an eye on Abby so he could bide his time and approach her again later, but this was his club president. He couldn't exactly blow him off for a woman, even for the first woman who had interested him in longer than he could remember. Yeah, let's go take a look at it. When they finally made it back inside, hands covered in grease, he couldn't find her or her friend. Catherine told him Angie and Danny had left right before he and Pothole came back in, so he couldn't even ask his sister about her new friend. He'd asked Danny Sunday when they met to spar. He needed to find a way to see her again.